So I think I promised I was going to share a couple of my shit rigs with you because people seem to like that sort of thing. This is a shit rig I'm building specifically for a web series called Digitiser the show, and what I'd really like to do for Digitiser is to rent something like a 688 and a CL12 and have a full RF distro, and it would all be wonderful. But the thing is, we just don't have the budget. It's a project I really care about and I want to do a good job, but I need to do it in a way that's affordable, and because I use a Zoom F4, I've got 4 mic channels, and this is going to be a panel show with up to 8 mics. And frankly, I quite like a good shit rig because it shows some ingenuity and ability to think around a problem. So I thought I'd go ahead and see if I could do something sensible with whatever I already owned, or what I could borrow, or just basically find down the back of the sofa. And yes, I'm now filming in landscape because somebody complained, and frankly I prefer landscape, but the youth of today seem to quite like square and all that Instagram works where everything's got to be square, or portrait. Having said that, given that the youth of today don't have any attention span, I don't think it's going to be a problem because they'll all have stopped watching by now. Bye! Oh god, this is driving me slightly mental. Okay, this is where I'm at. Basically, I'm going to have 8 radio mics and they're going to sit in here. So what you call RF distro, I'm calling a pound box that will be full of G3s. Actually, I'm going to rent a bunch of G3s. And I have the camera mount things for G3s. And I've just got them on a cold shoe extension bar and a clip. So I'll have 4 of the G3s up here, the rest dumped in this box gracefully. And then they'll be cabled into the back of my Focusrite audio interface. Let's look at the front first. Sorry about my fingerprint, but that's what happens when you switch to landscape mode. Focusrite 18i20, we've got a couple of inputs on the front and all the gain pots for that, and don't be a massive idiot like I just was and switch in the phantom power when you don't want it. Anyway, I digress. This has all your metering for your inputs, monitor out, and you've got a couple of different headphone feeds that you can set up, which is a mirror of some of the internal routing inside. So you can have the same stuff coming out of the headphone jacks on the front and coming out of some of the sockets on the back, which I'll show you. If we go around the back, which I'm not going to be able to get to because actually my telly's in the way, this is the back of the Focusrite, and this is the main monitor sends 1 and 2. I'm just doing a mono mix, but the reason I've got 2 sends is one is going into my Zoom F4, and the idea being that I can do a mix on the fly, save that onto the SD card on one channel, and here I'm actually coming out on a jack, and I'm going in on a jack, and the reason for that is that takes the input at line level. I was going through an adapter so that I would come in on an XLR, but that then defaults to mic level, and I found out that that was quite hissy, so I've gone to line level and that seems to be fine. That cable I just waved at you is basically taking the other main out into via jack into XLR, and then I've got a Y splitter so that I can have left and right on the camera the same input to help the editor. And basically it wouldn't really be a shit rig if it wasn't going through at least 87 different adapters to get where it wants to go. Similarly, talking of multiple adapters, I'm actually doing a timecode feed using a tentacle, and the tentacle, through this horrible collection of whatever I could find down the back of the telly, it's going for a headphone splitter. From the headphone splitter it's going into audio to analog to digital converter, and that is coming in around here into SPDIF into the Focusrite. Now the reason for that is I've only got 8 mic pre's, and I didn't want to give up a mic pre for timecode, but I do want timecode input, so that cost me about another 40 quid, but actually for this scenario I think it's quite a nice setup. This is also getting split out into via BNC into the Zoom. So basically I want to do a mix. I'm going to send it to camera, and I'm going to also have a backup mix on the Zoom, all timecode synced, and if everything goes absolutely to shit, we'll also have ISO saved on the computer in Reaper. I'm using Reaper, which I've not paid for yet. I really must do that. So if we go back to Reaper and have a look, we've got 8 mic channels, well, 8 inputs set up, and that corresponds to the mic pre's on the Focusrite. If we go, this is quite cool actually, if we go into timecode synchronization settings, that's where you can tell it where to get the timecode from, and you can tell it to synchronize the timecode. So what that'll do is every time I hit record, it's starting at the right time, and that's really nice because it means everything's timestamped and labelled. It is a bit of a pain in the arse because it means if you have a gap, if you come back and do a take later, you're going to have a gap on the timeline, which is a bit ugly. But it doesn't matter because everything is being saved as separate files. If we have a quick look in here, Biffo test, there you go, Mr. Biffo. What's happening is, this is really nice, all the files that are being saved, all the WAV files, they're named for the track, so that's whatever I've called the track. So when I do it for real, they'll have the presenter names, then the date, and then a timestamp. So as long as I keep notes and everything's timestamped and everything's labelled sensibly, and I'll do a new session every time we do a new setup, it should be relatively easy if we need to go back and pull off the files. And because they're all timestamped, if they need to be dumped into an editing session or non-linear editor, that should be relatively easy. So that's nice. Was there anything else I wanted to point out in terms of shit rig? Oh yeah, because I like hardware faders and I want to do a mix on the fly, I'm using a control surface which doesn't currently belong to me, but again, would it really be a shit rig if I wasn't beg, stealing and borrowing as much as I physically could? I love this, it's great. The only problem is the requirement to actually mix on the fly. If we go back, this is Scarlett Control or Focusrite Control. It's the old version. You can see that's the timecode pinging away, which I'm obviously not routing anywhere because I don't want to hear it, but I can see it is coming in. Anyway, I digress. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm monitoring and I'm sending out DAW1 and DAW2, which are coming straight out of Reaper. Now that's great. The only problem is, as you can probably guess, that means it's going through Reaper, therefore there's a lag. What I would normally do for recording is not have this fader up and be listening to. In this case, if I do that, I then can't really mix on the fly because what I want to do is mix in Reaper and send that out. So I'm having to do this. And it works, but it is phasey, it's a bit weird. Now, I don't mind that because I'll be mixing, I'll just be listening to that. But it's whether there's an appreciable lag with the picture. So if I timecode this and save it, that's absolutely fine. But if I send it to camera, there may be an appreciable lag with the picture, and that's not going to be very good. And I'm not really decided what to do about that yet, but I do have a few options. There you go, that's my shit rig. Yeah, basically Poundland box, beg, steal and borrow. These G2s will not be here on the day, they'll be in the box, but I put the box on the wrong side of me. I'm an idiot, what can you do? And we're in landscape. Happy? Yes, thank you, bye.